We toasted myself reaching the Millionaires Club. God, that sounds, I feel so crass talking about that. But it's true. It always made me laugh. I always think to myself, I must have been the only guy in the whole of Britain with this like bankruptcy account with £1 million sitting in it.
Welcome to the Invest Like a Boss podcast.
I'm Sam Marks.
I'm Derek Sparts.
And I'm Johnny FD. We're self-made entrepreneurs who invest our own money and use modern technology to invest like a boss.
Join us each week for exclusive interviews with our network of modern investors, business owners, and multimillionaires to discover new ways to invest our hard-earned cash.
What is up, bosses? A very special episode 301 of the Invest Like a Boss podcast. I got Johnny on the other end. He's hanging out in Kyiv, and very fittingly, I see a plaque back there that might be a YouTube plaque. Is that?
Yeah, this is the silver play button. I got this when I crossed over 100,000 subscribers. And actually, I probably wouldn't have gotten this if it wasn't for this week's guest. So shout out to Bankrupt for his alley loop assist to help me get over 100,000.
So I think we'll keep this intro pretty short because I got a lot of stuff to talk about afterwards. But I've actually met Bald and Bankrupt too. I met him when I was out in Ukraine, and I had no idea who this guy was. And I want to say like 6 months later, my aunt, who lives in like middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, goes, "Why is Johnny hanging out with Bald and Bankrupt?" I was like, wait, what? How do you even know what either of those two are? She knew you from, she's listening to the podcast, and she's like, "Why do I know that guy?" And she's like, "I follow all his videos." I was like, that's when you kind of know you made it. This guy's talking about the Soviet Union on the other side of the world, and my aunt, who lives in like a town of 300 people, knows about him as well.
So Bald and Bankrupt, if you guys somehow haven't heard of him, he has over 4 million subscribers on YouTube, and he is known as one of the YouTube legends, like probably the first adventure travel vlogger, especially in Eastern Europe or the old, post-Soviet countries, that has blown up on YouTube. He's huge. He's, besides, like the Mr. Beast type YouTube new age celebrities, Bald Bankrupt is the old school adventure traveler. He's like the Anthony Bourdain of YouTube.
So I don't really follow the vlogger types. Johnny, you're probably the channel I've watched the most out of any of those guys. So I really had no idea who he was. And I went back and actually just watched one of his videos right before this. He had a kind of a clickbaity title, but it might have lived up to the hype. It was called The Greatest YouTube Video of All Time. I'm sure you've seen it, Johnny. It's where he goes and finds the Russian spaceship.
That was insane.
So crazy. It was 40 minutes long. I don't think I've ever sat down and watched a 40-minute video. I skipped through maybe 5 minutes of it, but otherwise I watched the rest and I was like on pins and needles, like what's going to happen next? So he tells really great stories. If you haven't seen him, I'm going to put a link down to that video in the show notes too.
Definitely watch it. First off, I don't condone sneaking into, government sites, especially, anywhere that's, even if it's abandoned. Don't break laws, guys. Don't do any of this, the stuff. Bald Bankrupt, I'm going to say right now, he's not a mentor. He's not a someone to look up to. He is like, the bad boy of YouTube, right? Treat him as that. You're not going to look up to, I don't know, who's like the movie star version of that, where they're just like doing crazy stuff, risking their life.
Tom Cruise, I guess I would look up to him, but
Tom Cruise, you hear bad
stuff about him too.
I'm thinking more like, I don't know, Dennis Rodman. Don't look up to Dennis Rodman.
He's the Dennis Rodman of YouTube. I like that.
No, he's better than that. But you know what I'm saying. So
before we get into this interview, it should be noted that I don't think Bald really does any interviews at all. And he really doesn't do any self-promotion. We're talking guys like Mr. Beast, or you name any other YouTuber, like Graham Stephan. I'm bringing him up a lot. They're appearing on media all the time. I don't know that Bald really is at all. I guess you can speak to that better, Johnny.
Yeah, he actually never does interviews. So we're very lucky to have him here. And actually, the patrons got to hear this a few weeks ago as an early release. So if you haven't signed up as a patron yet, go to investlikeaboss.com, click on join as a member. You can support the show for as little as $5 a month, and you can get early access to exclusives like this.
Yeah, and I know our patrons were really excited about that, and hopefully the rest of you guys, now that you're hearing it, will be excited for this interview too. One quick little trivia piece before we get into this, Johnny. You mentioned that Bald has 4.1 million subscribers on his YouTube channel. and he's released 265 videos. So between those 265 videos, how many views do you think Bald has got on YouTube, Johnny? Because I was able to figure it out.
You mean in total? Wow. I have no idea. Like it would
So
have to be
265 videos. He's done 657 million views. So I think he's well on his way to 1 billion views pretty soon.
wow.
That's
That's
averaging
insane.
3 to 4 million views per video. There's like big TV shows these days that don't even reach those numbers.
Yeah, and I'm gonna spoiler right now. He's still bald. He's no longer bankrupt with those numbers.
Definitely not. He went from bald and bankrupt to bald and banked up. So
Ballin'.
why don't we get into this interview? Without further ado, here's Johnny and Bald and Bankrupt. Hey, bosses, we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. The show will be right back.
All right, Bald, welcome to the show.
Johnny, it's a big pleasure to finally be on the podcast. It's been a long time coming. I've been listening to the podcast for a long time, but to actually be on it is, well, I'll be honest with you, I'm a little bit nervous. So be kind with me with your questions about investing, please.
Well, you've been broke until now, so you didn't have a reason to come on.
Right, that's very true. Yeah, I think I think like you, I grew up in a very average working class household. And so this period of my life of having some money is completely unexpected. So late in my life as well. It was, for the majority of my life, 9/10 of my life, I was totally skint, as we say in England. So I never expected in a million years. If you'd said to me 6 years ago, oh, one day you'll be on a podcast talking about finances and investments, it would have just been completely surreal to me and impossible to believe. So yeah, it is kind of strange.
So let's rewind a bit. Were you actually bankrupt and broke before you started YouTube?
Yes, like a number of years before YouTube, I was genuinely bankrupt. We have a thing in the UK where going bankrupt's a very simple process and a very cheap process, and it wipes out your debts. Not debts maybe on a house, a mortgage, something like that, but unsecured debts. Unsecured loans. And I was let down. I had a small gardening business, and I was let down by a client that I did some work for. And so I borrowed a lot of money at a very, very high interest rate on credit cards, stupidly, in hindsight. And I couldn't afford to pay those back. And so to escape those debts, I went bankrupt. And the way that works in the UK is you pay £300, your debts are written off, but you can't apply for credit or have a mortgage or another credit card for like 2 years afterwards. So yeah, a lot of people, it's called a tactical bankruptcy. So a lot of people do it to escape, unsecured debt and then start again, basically.
And what year was that around?
So I started YouTube in 2018, I believe, and that would have been about 2015 when that happened. That's actually how the name came about. When I was thinking, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but when I was thinking of a name for a channel, you have all these ideas. What should you call yourself? Ben the Traveler, Soviet Ben, whatever. I was having a brainstorming session with my friend Harold, who already had a YouTube channel, and he'd made a joke about me in the past. He'd called me, because of my insolvency problems, he'd always called me Bald and Bankrupt, just, a little nickname he'd sometimes say. And so when we were thinking of a name, he said, oh, what about Bald and Bankrupt? And he said it as a joke. But I was like, oh, you know what? That's rather distinctive. And so, I decided there and then that was it. It was going to be Bald and Bankrupt.
Yeah, it actually completely works. It fits your personality so much. And I think being a Brit, you guys are okay with making fun of yourselves a bit, right?
Yeah, we have a self-deprecating humor. Also, I thought, like with the bald part was, I just thought, what are people going to attack you? Like when you go online, you have to expect to be attacked by people for certain things. And I thought, well, I can take away one of those arrows by, calling myself bald before the people in the comment section start calling me it. So yeah, so it was bald and it was bankrupt. I was both those things. Well, I still am one of those things. Yeah, the bankruptcy I've kind of escaped, but the baldness is still here.
Speaking of which, when did you make your first paycheck on YouTube, and how much was it for?
Okay, that's interesting. So I started in June 2018. And then I went through the thing that most YouTubers go through, which is for the first God knows how many months, you're uploading these videos that you actually think are kind of good, but you get like 100 views, 200 views. I did this series where I traveled through the Russian Caucasus. I was in Dagestan, I was in Chechnya, I was hitchhiking through mountains, I was seeing men firing machine guns. And I thought to myself, wow, this is really it. This is going to take off. No one else is doing this kind of stuff. And then you upload and, you get like 50 views. And I was like, this maybe just isn't for me. People don't chime with my personality, or my personality doesn't chime with them. And then I went on a trip to India with my friend Harold, who had a channel. He had about 100,000 subscribers at the time. And it was after that trip where I started, due to him really being like getting some exposure to his subscriber base, that my channel started to grow a little bit. And then I came back to the UK after that India trip. And that would have been about October or November. It was November, I think, of 2018. So the same year. So roughly 6 months later. And I remember when I landed at Heathrow Airport from Delhi, and I got that notification in your settings that you've been accepted for monetization, which for people who don't know, basically means you've reached a certain amount of watch time on your videos and a certain amount of subscribers. I think it's like 2,000 subscribers or something like that. And so then it was like every day I was just checking, like, God. And I remember going down the gym and seeing my friend James, and him saying, God, have you been monetized yet? How much are you going to make? And I was like, I don't know. But I remember having in my head that I really wanted to make £50 a day. I just thought if I could get £50 a day, because that was basically my travel expenses. I was like, God, if I could just make £50 a day on my first day, that would just be incredible. And I could continue to travel. And I remember I woke up one morning, it was like 6 o'clock, and I refreshed the page of my settings, my YouTube settings. And it said £404 that very first day. That was my very first day's money that I made on YouTube, £404. And I couldn't believe it. I genuinely couldn't believe it, because although I knew that other people, I knew what Harold was making and some other people, I never really believed that I would ever get anything like that. It seemed too good to be true that I would ever make, because at the time, before YouTube, I was doing crappy jobs in factories and on building sites and stuff. And I wasn't making £400 a week. So to have like a day, I'd never made that kind of money in my life. So that was incredible. So I just remember like phoning everyone, phoning a lean chick. Oh my God. She's like, how much? And I'm like, 404. And she's like, oh my God, that's incredible. And so, yeah, my very first day's amount of money was £404.
Wow. And did that continue? Was that a trend on day 2, day 3, and day 4?
Yeah, so it actually went up. So I was like, oh God, that has to be like a blip. Like maybe there's a mistake or something. The next day it's going to be like £10 or something. But no, the next day it was like 440, and then it was 5. So I'd released like this whole stack of videos. But then, of course, what happens is you kind of reach the peak and then it starts going down. And that's when the kind of, oh no, the trepidation sets in, and you're like, it goes down to 300, then it goes down to 200, and it goes down to 100. And even though like 6 months before, if you'd said I'd be making £100 a day, I would have been like, oh my God, that's incredible. I can't believe this. I'm getting paid to travel the world. When it happens, when you're used to getting £400 a day, even though it was only for a week, like suddenly you start thinking, oh God, I need to go and film again. And so that's what I did. As soon as it started going down, I panicked and I flew back to India and just tried to make more videos, just to try to keep the money at a kind of like at a rate that I was kind of like satisfied with.
Was it because you weren't uploading new videos and you were just kind of coasting on the things you had uploaded previously?
That's right. Yeah. And I think people had kind of discovered like the core base of subscribers I had at that time, the small amount that I had discovered those videos, and Harold subscribers that were going to check out my channel had discovered those videos that I'd made in India, and there was nothing left. And so suddenly like you fall off a cliff. So you go from making maybe £300 a day to suddenly you're making like, £15 a day or something. And then the kind of panic sets in, and a panic that kind of like has still stuck with me 6 years later, but maybe to higher levels. But yeah, and so as I say, that was once that started happening, it's like, oh my God, what can I do? Like the channel's dying, my money's dying, I need to go back and make more videos. So I just repeatedly flew to India over the following 2 or 3 months, basically.
Wow. And when did you start venturing away from India, and how did that go for you?
Yeah, so I returned to India like 3 times in the space of 2 months. But the truth was the videos were terrible. Like the videos when I went with Harold were funny because I had like a foil to play off, like a comical foil. So it's like when you and myself have done videos together, it's like you can banter off the person and you get something back for an energy from the other person. You got little jokes and stuff. And then after that trip, I flew to India by myself. And it just wasn't the same. And I didn't have that comical foil, and I had to go and find content by myself. And the truth was I didn't really know how to. Like I was just used to like bantering with Harold on a bus and laughing at things. When I was by myself, it was like, well, I've got to kind of find some kind of of storyline or something. And I really struggled with that. And the truth was that my heart didn't lie in India. Like, India was a fun place to go and film. A lot of YouTubers go to India first because it's a very easy place to film. The content finds you. People are very open to the camera. That's why we went there. But it wasn't fulfilling me in any way whatsoever. And I remember just phoning Harold one day and saying, I don't know what's happening. Like, the views are falling, but I don't know what to do. It got so bad, Johnny, that one time I just resorted to standing in Delhi traffic, like directing the traffic. There was like, it was a farcical video, and just like, pointing out things. Oh, look, there's a man in a rickshaw. Oh, look, there's a man with a turban on his head. It was absolutely farcical. And I was so ashamed of myself because I've always been quite creative. And I was like, oh my God, is this like my future on YouTube? But then I was saved by a dodgy pizza. I was in the city of Varanasi, and I went to a Western food chain, Pizza Hut or whatever it was, or Domino's, in fact, I think. And I got this terrible stomach. I was throwing up for days, had diarrhea, all the rest of it. And I was like, right, instead of going to England, where you have to wait months for a doctor's appointment, I'll fly to Belarus. I'll fly to Minsk. And I flew to Minsk. I knew I could get a private doctor's appointment immediately and see a hospital. So I went to the doctor. I had like this endoscopy, and they said, yeah, come back like on Tuesday for your results. And I was like, okay, I'm in Minsk. Like, I've got nothing to do. What shall I do? And I was like, oh, you know what? I could go and make a video somewhere. And I was like, so I looked on a map. There was a town nearby called Bobruisk. And I was like, because I was always been fascinated by the Soviet Union, obviously. I think people know that. And I was like, I'll just go there and film it. But I remember Harold had always told me, no one cares about European videos. Like, they don't get the views. People want Asia. They want the craziness of the markets. They want the characters. They want the spices, the colors, the flavors, the noise. But I thought, okay, I'll just go and do it, and no one's going to watch maybe, but I'll enjoy it. So I took a day trip to Bobruisk, or a weekend trip to Bobruisk, checked into a hotel, and just filmed all the stuff I'd always been fascinated by. The Soviet signs, the Soviet architecture, the Soviet people, and the Soviet bus stops. And I went back and I uploaded it. And to my surprise, the video, people loved it. And like, people are like, oh my God, this is fantastic. We've never seen this before. This is so cool. This is so much more interesting in India. And I was like, oh my God, maybe, just maybe, there's a transition for me. I don't have to go back to India ad infinitum just to make more and more videos. Maybe there is an option for me here to do something more creative and like to follow my own passions. And fortunately, that's what happened.
What about those early videos that you made in Dagestan? Did those end up taking off and getting views?
I mean, yes and no. They did much better once more people discovered my channel. But when I look back, I can see all the mistakes that I made. Becoming a YouTuber or growing a channel is a process, right, of learning, like anything in life, like finances. It's a learning process as you go along. And when at the time I thought my videos were great, oh my God, just because I was in Dagestan and no one had really filmed in Dagestan before, I thought that was enough, or in Chechnya. But looking back, they were very amateurish. They were sloppily made. They were rushed. I would check into my hotel or my hostel at the end of the evening of days filming and quickly edit it and then like chuck it out. I just wanted that excitement of the people commenting and some likes, or thinking, well, maybe this is the big one, so I'll just upload it ASAP. But so looking back, I can see what I would have done. I would have done things so differently had it been now. But yeah, they never took off majorly, but they definitely grew.
Well, your style is definitely the complete opposite of the daily YouTubers like myself, where you'll fly to a country and you'll make one video versus someone like me, or a lot of YouTubers will make 30 videos in one place. What made you decide to make one kind of epic long video, per country, instead of milking as much as you can, or just popping them out?
Yeah, so I don't think there's anything wrong with either way of doing things. And in the beginning, I did it the other way. Like when I was in India traveling with Harold, I was uploading sometimes twice a day, and just little short videos, 8 minutes, 9 minutes, 7 minutes. But as I started to grow and started to develop more my style, I just found that I could tell a story. I come from more of a writing background. I used to love writing. I've been writing since I was a kid, just random fantasy stories and whatever. And I just found that I could tell a story over a longer video than I can in an 8-minute video. So I could have a start. I could explain things more slowly. I could go on a journey. I could then have like the hero's journey in a sense. I could like have my tribulations, my troubles. Will I find whatever I'm looking for at the end of this journey, whether that be the Caspian Sea monster or the Buran space rocket or whatever it is. And so it just suits me that I can make a 45-minute video and get everything in and have it more of listen, at the end of the day, I'm not painting the Sistine Chapel. It is only like a YouTube video, but I want to be as creative as I can. And I just find I can make a better video by doing it long form. Now, obviously, that has like cost me a lot in terms of income, because if I did 3 or 4 or 5 videos from a country, like I think over the long haul, I would have made a lot more money. But for me, it was like, okay, am I making enough? Yeah, I'm all right. So let me try and do what I can as best as I can. And that was my policy.
You know what? I do actually think that in the short run, you would make more money just pumping out more videos. But maybe the reason why you've been as successful as you are is because each one of your videos is basically a short film, sometimes a long short film, but people grow to expect, one upload a month, but that is going to be a quality story that's going to go have a start, middle and an end, like a movie would.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, it doesn't always work out like that, because, you can fly to a country, and that's the danger of doing it my way, of just planning for one long video, is that sometimes it can be totally crap. Like, I mean, I can look at my videos recently. Like I did one in Bulgaria, and just, I never met that person, like when I was in Ukraine and I went to Ladan, I met this guy called Sergey with a motorbike, and he was that person, that character for the video that made the video, and like I can see recently. So sometimes you can go there and it's a risky thing, because you've only got one shot at it. And so where I make one long video, but it doesn't always come off. And so I've also had the videos where, I've done these long ones and it's like, nothing really happened. But that's just what happens in life. And sometimes it works. Usually it's okay. I normally meet some people. I believe that people are the fundamental, the most interesting thing about the videos, the characters that I meet, much more interesting than myself. And so, that's what you want to try and find out, one real character that you connect with or the audience connects with in a video. It doesn't always happen. But I think looking back, I made the right choice. I'm happy with it. I don't know if I'll continue doing that, because there's a lot of pressure, as I just said, to get that one good video from a trip. And maybe now, I'm a little bit older and stuff. I've been in the game a long time. Maybe I've got nothing to prove anymore. So I just want to chill out and just do a little bit more daily type of vlogging.
Well, you've definitely created those legendary videos that always live out there, and you've made some money from it. Can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, in fact, you can talk about it, because I remember. Do you remember Visaginas in Lithuania?
Yes.
So I mean, okay. The problem is that as a North European, it's kind of vulgar for us to talk about money, isn't it? Okay, you're a Californian. I presume that for you is a lot easier. Like you celebrate your successes. Like in Britain or Northern Europe, it's like, oh, who does he think he is talking about money? It's so crass, blah, 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 But if you want to go down that road, yeah, I remember. So as I said before, I'd never had money before. And then the money started coming in and coming in and coming in. And it feels like you've cheated a game. You've got like a cheat code. It doesn't feel real when you get this money pouring in. And, for people, I don't think people are so naive to think that YouTubers don't make good money, especially if you have a big channel, you have a lot of views. And yeah, I remember so I went in April of 2019. So it was about a year after I started. I went to Moldova and I made some videos in Moldova that really took off, in Transnistria, in Chisinau. I called it like the Nobody Visits This Country, Find Out Why. It's my most popular video still on my channel. And I remember at the end of that month, I made £16,000. That's 1.6. And I couldn't believe it. Because before then I'd made like 5, I'd made 6 or something, which, hey, that's fantastic money, of course is. But it was 16 and it was like, oh my God, that's like, it was beyond my wildest expectations. And I've always held that number now as my benchmark. If I make above 16, I'm happy. And if I make below 16, this sounds terrible. If I make below £60,000 a month, I'm kind of like disappointed. But I say that you were part of the story because as someone who never had money, who never came from money, I think you become a hoarder and you just want to hoard and you don't want to invest. You want to hoard it and hoard it and hoard it. And I remember we were in Visaginas and I had just sold some videos to a company, some rights to my videos. And I received a check that took me over quite a nice landmark. Is that how you pronounce? Is that how you say it? Like a benchmark of wealth. Mm-hmm. And I remember you ordering, and we were in this cheap Italian restaurant in this like old Soviet shopping center, and you were like, "Me old mucker, we've got to have some champagne." You ordered like this bottle of cheap Soviet champagne, as I remember, and you proceeded to spill most of it. But we toasted myself reaching the Millionaires Club. God, that sounds. Oh, I feel so crass talking about that, but it's true. But it's the truth. And that took me, I think, 3 years from when I started YouTube until I had £1 million in my account in cash. And I never invested anything, Johnny, because I wanted to be able to say, I'm a millionaire. I just wanted to screenshot that amount of money in my, because, okay, when you get bankrupt, when you go bankrupt in the UK, they give you a very basic bank account. You can't borrow on it. There's no interest on it. It's just for people who have a terrible credit score like me, right? And so it always made me laugh. I always think to myself, I must have been the only guy in the whole of Britain with this like bankruptcy account with £1 million sitting in it. But yeah, that's what happened.
Wow. How did it feel, by the way? Like, I know we celebrated, we had, the cheap champagne, but did it feel real to you?
It did, because I could see it coming. It wasn't like I won a lottery, right? If you win the lottery, I suppose you've got nothing and suddenly you win the lottery, you've won £1 million or whatever it is. And you're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. This is a dream. I just went out and bought a ticket. Where did this come from? I never expected it. But of course, in our industry, or when you're making good money, you're slowly creeping up. So it's coming, and that's why I always put off buying anything really with the money, because I just wanted to get to that point where it was like, okay, I can see that £1 million in there, just so I can say, you know what? I'm a millionaire, because there was that. Listen, Johnny, I don't know how it was for you growing up. You grew up with nothing. But I had a lot of successful cousins and relatives and stuff like that who really did very well for themselves, went to university. I never went to university. I left school at 15. I had one GCSE in English. I have like cousins and stuff and who did very well for themselves. So when I was at those family dinner parties, it was always embarrassing when they'd say, oh, and so how's it going, Ben? What are you doing? And I was like, oh God, I work in some like crappy factory, or I'm, a labourer on a building site. And so I just wanted really to like see that £1 million sitting in my account, just so I could like say, you know what, screw you, like I made it too, So did it?
Well, absolutely, absolutely well deserved. I would say this. That when you first told me that, it was just sitting in a unsecured bank account.
No interest, mate. Zero interest, literally zero interest.
I was like, this is the worst investment you've ever made. But now that you tell the story again, I'm thinking, you know what? Yeah. That was still way better than the alternative of what most, overnight YouTube millionaires would be, the ones that go out and buy a Lamborghini or just blow the money on something else. So even though from an invest like a boss standpoint, sitting in a zero interest bank account was a terrible investment. At least you had the $1 million to start with.
Yes. I suppose I'm a little bit lucky in that this came to me older in life. It came to me when I became a millionaire. God, that sounds so strange to say. But when I was like 46, I suppose, 47, 46. And 47, in fact. And so I was past that idea of like needing to show off with Lamborghinis and stuff like that. Like that was like that. If I'd got that money when I was 21, who knows, try and impress the chicks or something. But in my late 40s, it was like, whatever. That wasn't on my horizon, fortunately.
What was on your horizon was, luckily, after that glass of champagne, I kind of became your unofficial and unpaid financial advisor.
You did, although we do have a disagreement on something about investing, which is I do remember me saying, oh, I'm going to go into crypto, and you being like, mate, you be very, very careful. You be very, very careful with this. Keep it safe. Go for the S&P 500 and stick to that. I didn't take your advice, and it worked out okay. But you have been a guy that not only were you there at that, that benchmark, but you've been the person actually that I've turned to when I want some advice. You've given me like stuff to read and stuff when I don't know what to do. And I remember actually what really made an impression on me, because you always talked about the S&P 500, but until you actually see something with your own eyes, it's just kind of, it's in a book. Everyone says buying the S&P, it's safe, blah, blah, blah. But I remember we were in Budapest. We went to a cafe together on Octagon. And I said, Johnny, can you show me your account, please? And you showed me your account, I won't say what you had, but you're in the S&P. And I was like, oh my God, you really made that money from passive income. But is it called passive income? I don't know. Would that be passive income? I don't know. But like what you'd made in the last year, I was blown away. And I was like, okay, this actually works. This is real. Compound interest is a thing. And so I need to get into that as well.
Do you remember what the amount was? You could say it.
I think it was $500,000. I don't know, but I remember like in the year, like you'd made like 120,000 in the year previous or something. I was like, what the flipping heck's going on here? Like that was mega money. I think that I don't recall exactly, but I know it was a shitload of money. And and you'd made a lot in that previous year, like And so I was super impressed by that. And after that, I started really looking at it.
Yeah. So I do remember, when we talked about, you putting your money in crypto, I probably said something like, hey, don't take that gamble. If you want to, do 10% or less of your income, and know that you might do really well, but you might lose all of it. So, it sounds like, you disregarded that advice. You took a big gamble, but you're lucky it paid off. But it definitely could have swung the other way.
100%. I mean, at the time when I was investing in crypto for the first time, there was talk of governments banning it. I mean, China banned it, I think, investing in Bitcoin, stuff like that. There was real talk of people banning it. But I think what it was that, no matter what you do is a risk, right? Sitting in the bank is a risk, right? The bank can go bankrupt, or you're going to lose it through inflation. So no matter what you do, investing it in the S&P, everything's a risk. So I was like, well, it's sitting here doing nothing. And I think part of my travels around the former Soviet Union in, let's say, some less than democratic countries, realizing what those countries could do to citizens or those governments, I really wanted to get a share of my wealth off the market, so to speak. So what I mean by that was in a place, just a bit of paranoia, I suppose, because my money was totally legally made, right? I didn't have to hide it. But it was a part of me. I was like, bloody hell, they can just come and take it for whatever reason. And I remember there was regarding the Ukraine conflict, there was a British, I don't remember his name, but it was a British journalist who was on like the Russian side in the Donbass, and he was interviewing prisoners of war, I remember. And the British government took his home and like stripped him of his assets. And I remember thinking, oh my God, what if like I've made videos in like Russia and stuff? What if they like do that to me? And after that, I really started to think about, okay, maybe crypto is a way I can put at least some of my wealth, and it can be like, it won't be touched by anyone.
Well, luckily you haven't gone and started making pro-Russian propaganda since it got so bad.
No.
But
no.
I do actually specifically remember saying, whatever you do, step one is don't have all your money in one bank account, because you can get locked up in there,
Correct.
even for
advice.
other reasons. Yeah. And at least with the US bank accounts, each account is secured up to a certain amount. I'm sure it's the same in the UK as well. So there is a security there versus with crypto, that whoever you hold it with might just go under. The keys that you memorized or printed out might just get lost. So
yes.
In that case, it's definitely less secure.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It is less secure. I suppose now you could buy into an ETF fund, right? There's a way of getting into crypto without the actual added hassle of having to look after your keys. And that is a worry, of course. Someone hacking my account. Obviously, I've taken them off Coinbase, and they're now where they are. They're on a private, I've got my private keys. But still, as you say, if my house burns down, what do I do? Like, I'll probably lose everything. So it is still a worry, but it was a worry when everything was in the bank. It's like, oh my God, I've got all this money in the bank. What if it goes bankrupt? So no matter what you do, there's going to be fears, there's going to be worries, in the S&P even, it's like, oh my God, everything could crash. We could have a major recession. So no matter what you do, there's fears. You just have to, I think the key is what I found, and I've only really started doing this recently, is diversification. And I think just what is boring works. And so now I have a little bit in property, I have a little bit in the S&P, I have a bit in crypto, I have a bit in cash. And so if one of those things goes completely balls up, and let's face it, it's probably going to be the crypto, at least I have still some cash. I still have some investments.
So you can either use hard numbers or percentages, whatever's easier, but approximately what percentage of your net worth do you have in each category, in crypto or in the S&P, in cash?
Yeah. Good question. So I would say, let me work this out in my head quickly. So I would say I have about 45% in crypto, and that is mostly in Bitcoin, but also much of it in Solana. I like Solana because you can stake it and have like a monthly wage off that. So I like that. Then I have about 25% in the S&P, and I have a bit of cash. And I have my apartment that I bought for cash as well. So so it's kind of spread out. But I'm very crypto heavy, to be honest with you. I still believe in crypto. It is the riskiest of them all. But that volatility is also good because volatility. People say, "Oh, I don't like the volatility of crypto." Let's just focus on volatility for a second. They say, "Oh, I don't like the volatility of crypto. It can go down, 50% in a month." It absolutely can. But it can also go up 50% in a month. And that's kind of what you're buying into. That volatility is it can be a good thing. But yeah, the thing with crypto is obviously that something drastic could happen. You don't know what government regulations are going to come in. But I think now we're moving more towards acceptance, and with people like Fidelity starting ETFs and BlackRock investing, I think that's good. It means a bit of volatility will go from it because it's becoming a little bit more mainstream. And so you're not going to have these massive rises and peaks or massive crashes. But it's still a risk.
Absolutely huge risk. Let me ask you.
Are you? Sorry, can I ask? Are you not in crypto at all? Then what about you?
So I had about 10% of my net worth in crypto at one point, just because I had the FOMO. I wanted to participate. It was exciting.
Yep.
And I did well with it. Actually, I was in Ether and in Bitcoin. Everything went up. Yep. But then the two exchanges that I had the money sitting in, that was basically being staked to earn interest.
Yep.
Those both collapsed. They went bankrupt. It was BlockFi and Celsius.
Oh no! How unlucky are you?
Well, it's just not me. I mean, a lot of people, I would say they lose everything, but they don't really talk about it because it's a bit embarrassing, or you just don't hear from them because they don't have a podcast. That they're not on YouTube.
Correct.
So I would be willing to bet that more people have lost money on crypto than they have made money, because the ones that make money you hear from all the time.
Well, sorry to interrupt. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think no one holds long. I think with crypto, it's a long play. So for me, this is how I did my investments. I did it in like different layers. So I did, cash is for the next 10 years. So I've got cash available for the next 10 years. Crypto is for after 10 years, so when I'm 60, and that will be throughout my 60s. I'll use my crypto money, and my S&P, I will use that in my 70s onwards. And that's kind of how I've done it. I just think if you, apart from being careless, not that you were careless, because you can't control like a bloody, an exchange going under. But apart from being careless and using your keys or something, if you just sit on the crypto and hold it, I just think you're going to be okay. If you're willing to hold it for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, I think you're going to be okay.
I definitely hope that's the case for you. Let me ask
Thank you.
Why wouldn't you put that money in a crypto ETF then, if that's a bit safer?
So the ETF is safer in terms of you can't lose your keys, right? However, I still like the fact that I've got some money tucked away somewhere in terms of crypto where no one else can touch it, right? Where the government can't just suddenly say, oh my God, we're in a terrible recession, like they did in, I think it was in Cyprus, where they just raided people's bank accounts. And they just said, right, anyone who's got over this amount, we're just going to take it. And so I like that. Or, there's no way of anyone getting hold of that. My keys are safe. I know what they are. No one else knows what they are. And so, yes, it would be easier to have an ETF. You have to buy the flipping Bitcoin and put it somewhere. But it's kept out. It's kept off the market completely. And also it's a very easy way to send someone money. I've got a lot of friends around the world, people I help out sometimes, not too much, or I want to buy something from someone or whatever it is. And just with crypto, it's like there's no transaction fees, pretty much. It's very low transaction fees. And I can just do that immediately without worrying about it. Whereas with a bank, it's just like, oh God, I've got to do it like this. So it's easy to send someone like USDC or USDT than it is to make a transaction from a bank.
You've actually sent me money for like my birthday and kind of random places, and I think it was through either like Revolut. Yeah,
Revolut.
And that was just as easy. I mean,
well, okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah, so listen, I don't think the low transaction fees and the quick transactions is the best thing about crypto. I do think it's the fact that you are completely in control of what you have, and no one can touch it. But yeah, okay, Revolut, sure. I mean, I wasn't too generous with your birthdays, I expect. So I mean, it was probably like £20 or something. So that's probably easy just to do on Revolut.
But I do understand your position. And I think a lot of people who are, not that you guys are criminals or anything, but
sure,
just in case, the government decides one day, hey, we don't like people with more than $1 million, or we don't like, people who are outspoken. So I understand why you like holding crypto, and I think this is why a lot of people do it. I also think that there is a significant chance of the money being completely lost in the next 10 years, but also there's also a significant chance of it doubling or quadrupling. So if that's a gamble you're willing to take, and the benefits of having it is in line with your values, and your kind of risk tolerance, then go for it.
Yeah, I'm happy with it. I mean, of course, like sometimes, you do get, as they say in the crypto world, FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. You do think, oh my God, this is just like, it doesn't even exist. What is crypto? Like, there's nothing there. There's no value to it. It's not like a stock. Like, oh my God, what if people just decide suddenly that crypto's worth nothing and then it will go to zero? But as I say, I'm willing to take that chance. And I'm going to leave my crypto for 10 years and not touch it. And then we'll see where we are after 10 years. Maybe I'm at zero, or maybe I'm a trillionaire. Who knows?
Yeah, definitely be interesting to revisit this in 10 years and see.
Absolutely.
But yeah, what are your plans, by the way, for the next 10 years? Are you going to continue making videos? Are you going to start spending down the money that you've made? Or do you feel like seeing that number dip ever below, a certain point, whether it's a million or more, will feel like you're going bankrupt again?
Oh my God, yes. I mean, if the money look, inevitably every YouTube channel has its peak and then it goes down. I can already feel pretty much that my channels, the views aren't there as they were before, and that's fine. I was very lucky. Not many people get to the stage that I was at the peak, so I'm kind of like, quite sanguine about the fact that it's going to slowly now descend into, I think you said the other day we're having a chat, you said, you got to remember, Ben, that we're a couple of dinosaurs. We've been around here for a long time doing this, and and that's perfectly natural. And so that means the income will start shrinking, and I don't mind that so much. But yeah, if my investments start shrinking, I think it will be a little bit of panic mode and I will suddenly feel extremely poor. But you just have to, that's a mental thing, right? Because at the end of the day, like for yourself and for me, like, are you going to spend the money we have anyway? Like, what are you going to spend it on realistically? Because both of us are pretty chilled. Like, we're not exactly Gucci kind of, I don't want to speak for you. I don't know. Like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I know for myself anyway. I've been wearing the same pair of Uniqlo. I mean, I buy different ones, but they're basically the same style. Same pair of Uniqlo, like tracksuit bottoms for the last like 10 years, and so I can afford now to go to a shop and buy some Gucci jeans or whatever. I don't do it. It's not because I haven't got the money to do it, it's because I just don't have those desires for those kind of things. I just don't want those expensive luxury things. And so for me, I'm going to be okay money wise, but yeah, when you see it dipping or when I start to see it going down, which inevitably it will, that's going to be something mentally that's going to be a struggle to deal with for sure.
I mean, you might not be buying Gucci jeans, but I've definitely seen you spend more money lately, on clothes, on, just going out and in general. Did you feel like that was a shift of after you hit your benchmark, or how did that happen?
I think you know this yourself. Whenever you get a benchmark, you're just off to the next benchmark. So like £1 million, I was like, oh, well, it started off at 250. Well, actually, that's not true. It started off at £20,000 when I started YouTube. I was like, if I get to £20,000, that's it. I've been a success. I can travel for a couple of years. Perfect. And then you get to 20, you're like, oh, it'd be amazing if I saw 100,000 in my account. And then it's like, oh, I wonder if I just pull my horns in, it'll be more. I get to 250, and then you get to 1 million. But when you get to 1 million, you don't suddenly think, oh, hey, that's it, I've made it. You're like, right, can I get to 1.5 million? That's just how it works. Have I started spending more? Yeah, I've allowed myself to be a little bit more relaxed in my spending. Like yesterday, I'll give you an example. Yesterday, you know what? I wanted to buy a little speaker for my apartment so I could listen to like music in my apartment. And the one that I wanted was like £30 and it was sold out. And the guy said, well, we've got this one. It's from a company called Marshall. They're really good, but it's £75. I was like, £75 for a little portable speaker? I mean, that's farcical. Like, why would I do that? And then I was like, you know what, Ben? He said it's twice as good as the other. Why not just go for it? What's £75 to you at the end of the day? It's not going to break the bank, but why not? So I have started to kind of like, just spend a little bit more on quality here and there, but it still like sends a bit of a shudder up my spine of, oh my God, I shouldn't be doing that. But I think that's the same for you, right? It's just from people from poorer backgrounds who basically never quite get over that. You've always got that scarcity mindset, I think. And you're like, oh my God, it could run out. I don't want, what am I going to do? And also because I don't have any other skills, Johnny. I don't have a degree in something. I'm not an engineer. I'm not, I'm not super talented in anything else. Like if this all falls apart and I lose everything, as you said, like with the crypto, I'm back to the factory, mate. And so that's terrifying for me, And so I really am a little bit more, I suppose, stingy and like more careful with my money than maybe most people would be in my position, because I'm terrified of going back to the lifestyle that I had before. I really don't want to go back to flipping building sites in November, pouring with rain, windy, terrible.
Yeah, you and me, mate. So definitely.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I'm sure you do. Although actually, I think you were in Thailand living the high life, so I don't know. You were like a dive instructor and stuff, as I recall. So you've always had like some kind of nice jobs, I think. I don't know the full history. I'm sure it's not quite true, but you did have a period of life which must have been pretty cool. You were the king of Chiang Mai for a long while, I think.
Yeah, I was definitely very frugal, living very cheaply, but I can say that I hacked it where I was enjoying my life while living frugally.
I think that's the best way to do it. And I think it's also about, like, for me, it's about lining up the ducks of your life. So like the apartment that I bought an apartment in Prague, and it's about being near a nice little cheap restaurant, a nice little cafe nearby. The gym's not too far, a little cheap gym. There's a little tram stop at the bottom of my street, so I don't need to take taxis, or I don't need to own a car or anything like that. And it just kind of like keeps it all, I don't know, it just keeps your outgoings. Convenience kind of stops you from spending a lot of the time.
How much do you spend per month on average?
I allow myself £50 a day. Now, that is basically like food and maybe going out for a beer or something like that. But that's basically, I say, £1,500 a month. Now, of course, like when I'm traveling for filming, it's completely different because there's going to be like a £800 flight and hotels. But when I'm in my apartment just chilling, that's what I allow myself. And that covers everything. I mean, that's more than enough for me. I spend £20 a day on food, I suppose. I'm very lucky that Prague's very cheap. I can go and buy a steak for like £6, a good steak, and, fresh prawns, all this kind of stuff that I like. And so, yeah, I say to myself, I won't go over £50 a day. That's pretty much what I say.
That's a very fair budget. Have you ever thought about living somewhere more expensive now? Maybe back in the UK now that you have more money?
How dare you? Back in the UK, Johnny. Not in a million years, mate. I wouldn't go back to the UK to live. I mean, I just did a tour of the UK. Like I did 3 or 4 videos in the UK. Mate, there's nothing that I saw. And listen, look, I don't want to shit on my country. And I don't want to shit on the people that live there, because a lot of people haven't been as lucky as me, and they don't have the choice of moving abroad to a nice, like you've done. You've moved to a nice East European capital, before the Troubles and all that kind of stuff. Same as me, I live in a lovely old apartment with a nice high ceiling. There's little trams go past the end of my street. Nice Baroque architecture. Not everyone has that. A lot of people are, in the UK, living in Blackburn, Wigan, like, Middlesbrough, places that I've been to on my tour, Soho Road in Birmingham. And mate, there's nothing that would take me back for £1 million. I'd rather lose everything and be out here still just in my little cozy apartment, scraping a living as an English teacher, than I would go back to the UK.
Wow. So even if someone offered you a free apartment in central London, Mayfair, you wouldn't do it?
You've got to tell me what would be one advantage of living in Mayfair, central London, than living here in a little suburb of Prague. I can't think of one. I honestly can't think of one. Okay, Heathrow's a better airport than Prague Airport. I'll give you that. Apart from that, yeah, there's probably more things I could learn there. I could go and maybe learn some kind of crazy martial art, wushu or something that, you just don't have that variety of things here. But apart from that, safety here, like, yourself, like from Ukraine, right? Okay, look, Ukraine is in a bit of a situation at the moment where obviously, it's under attack. It's slightly different. It's not, when I talk about safety, you have, it's an anomaly at the moment. But, usually East Europe and Central Europe is just so much better. It's cleaner, it's safer, it's cheaper, it's better value for money than anywhere that I can think of in Western Europe. I sometimes have that dream of, should I move to Spain? It'd be nice, live in Spain by the beach, something like that. I speak Spanish now. I'm trying to learn Spanish. And then I think to myself, okay, so for example, I visited Sam in Barcelona. And listen, Barcelona's got beautiful architecture and stuff like that, but there were like soup kitchens on the street, and, people told me how they were burgled. When I leave Prague, I don't close my top windows. I want to air my flat. I can leave my top window open, and I go away for like 2 months at a time, and I have no fear that someone's going to come and break in. Like, you just can't do that in London. You can't do that in Barcelona. You can't do that, I don't think, in Germany, in Belgium, but in Prague or in Budapest or Kiev, these places, you can do that, and that is worth its weight in gold for me. So I have no desire to ever return to a Western country.
All right. Well, you can definitely afford to live anywhere in the world you want now. So I think you found your place. By the way, I need to rewind. you had very briefly mentioned that right before your Millionaire celebration, it was because you got a lump sum check from selling the royalties of your videos. Can you explain how that worked?
Yeah, so I don't know how much I can. Okay, I can't discuss the exact details in terms of money because I'm under contract. But basically, after about 2 years, I think it was, of having a YouTube channel, I received an email from a company. And they said, hey, Mr. Bald, would you like to hop on a call? We're interested in purchasing the rights to the videos that you've made. And so I hopped on a call with them and they explained that basically they buy the rights to all the previous videos you've made. They don't have any rights to going forward videos. That's all yours. But they basically give you a lump sum. This is basically, they've been doing it in the music industry for decades. I remember when David Bowie and the Beatles sold their back catalogue. You're basically selling your back catalogue like a performing artist would. And so I said, sure, make me an offer. And they made me an offer. And I sold them the rights to my videos that I'd made up to that point for 5 years. So all the revenue, the advertising revenue, goes to them. And I took the lump sum. The mistake that I made was that I didn't invest that lump sum because I was so hung up on getting to £1 million that I should have invested, stuck it in the S&P or something and converted that, whatever it was they paid me into doubled. But I never did that. But I think it's been okay. I've done it twice now. I'm very happy with it.
And have you ever calculated if you would have received more money if you just left it in there?
Yes, great question. You know what? I haven't because there's no way of me really calculating it. But what I will say is that a week ago, they wrote to me again and said, we'd like to make you an offer again, like the third offer for what you've made in the last couple of years since Visaginas, basically. So I said no. I wasn't really down for that because I just want to get all my rights back. Now, I feel like I made them. I've got the money. It's not about the money anymore so much. So I was like, no, I turned it down. But the fact that they came back to me and asked me one more time tells me that they probably did better than I did. So I think they did okay out of it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made a third offer.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. It would only make financial sense unless it was a lifetime offer. But you said it's only for 5 years anyways, right?
Yeah, it's 5 years. You get them back after 5 years. I know I'm not allowed to mention other people who work for who they bought. But there's some massive YouTubers about as big as you can get who've done the same thing. And I don't know, when I discussed that with various people, friends, my mother and stuff like that. And some were like, yeah, go for it. And some were like, you know what, you made those videos, they're yours. I don't think you should. In the end, it was just going back. I don't want to get the violin out and make it like a sob story. I wasn't that poor. We did have food and stuff. But when you come from, let's say, a less than wealthy background, when someone dangles that carrot in front of you, like a pretty much life-changing amount of money, you're like, yeah, go on then. Even if you think, well, I would like to keep hold. I'm sure the Beatles didn't want to sell their back catalogue, but when someone offers you that money, you're like, yeah, go on then.
Well, definitely well deserved. I know I bust your balls sometimes, but you definitely are an inspiration. You've been a mentor.
Please.
And I will say that you do make some of the best videos on YouTube. So thank you so much for coming on Invest Like a Boss. And thank you for being a YouTube legend.
Oh, mate, those are very kind final words. I would have come on before if I'd known you were going to say such nice things. I don't know if I'm a legend, but anyway, thanks, Johnny. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. And I just want to, if I can just say something to the people listening, honestly, it's never too late. I didn't start YouTube until I think I was 44 or 45. Oh, 44, in fact, I was. And I had no prospects up to then to ever make any money or to invest any money. It's never too late. If you have an idea, you want to run with it and you're a little bit creative or something like that, just go for it. Don't give up. Although making money never was really my goal, I understand for a lot of people to get themselves out of the situation, it would really help. And it's never too late. Don't give up. Keep following whatever dream it is that you're chasing, because if I can do it, and I'm a dummy, if I could do it at 44, 45, then I'm sure other people out there could too. So good luck you guys and your endeavors.
Hey bosses, we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. The show will be right back. Johnny, super interesting to hear the financial side of this, because I know you're obviously doing well on YouTube and it's funding your lifestyle for the most part, but Bald is on another level and you can't really get any straight answers out of any YouTubers. And I think this is about the clearest picture we've got from any big YouTuber, at least that I've heard.
A lot of YouTubers will make these videos of how much, money I make, but they don't really show you how much they make now. They show you the struggle from before, how many years that they worked to get to this point. But we want to know how much these big ballers make today. And Bald was the only one who really opened that up.
So as someone who just recently got monetized on YouTube, I think I'm in my 3rd month now on my channel. Shout out at Petroelectric, shameless plug. Bald made more money monetized on day 1 than I've made 3 months in. So it may be inspiring, but also kind of sad on my part.
Well, I will say this, that 99 0.9% of people making videos on YouTube make nothing or make an insignificant amount of money. I'm talking about less than $100. And there's very, very few people like Bald and Bankrupt. It's his videos though. I would say this right now. First off, he's an artist. I will put that out there because we have been in the exact same countries at the exact same time with both of our cameras out. He'll make a video that's like 25 minutes and it'll be a masterpiece and it'll get millions of views. And I will take that same footage. One time it was actually the exact same footage because he didn't bring his camera. So he just took all of my raw film, while I put that into like 2 or 3 separate, mediocre videos that got, let's say, 30 to 50,000 views each. My videos were not that great. And he took his time, he edited it, he cut out a lot of stuff. He really packed it, like action packed it. Had a really good storyline. And when his came out, blew mine out of the water, straight away, million views. And he got paid accordingly for that. I think for the million views, you're going to expect $10,000 plus in just ad revenue.
Yeah, he's a superb storyteller. And you see a video on YouTube that's 30, 40 minutes long, and you're like, oh my God, there's got to be so much fluff in there or just like unnecessary content. But he edits them really tight. And there's so much stuff within that time period. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. For you to get like 30 to 40 minutes of like solid, good content that really probably should stay in the video is pretty wild.
Well, one thing that he does differently than I do, or the mediocre YouTubers, he'll travel to a country and make just one video. Meanwhile, I'll film the flight there, me checking into the hotel, me getting lost on the first day, and I'll make that into a series because I feel like I need to stretch it out, or I want to show everything. I want to try to, make my, $200 here and there. But he'll take that entire trip. He'll fly all the way to like Afghanistan or something and just make one video out of it and then just come back.
Yeah, it's different approaches. I think with your channel, Johnny, you have to maybe more know you a little bit, I think, for each of your videos, because it goes in order, right? Or you kind of have to know what happened on the last video to kind of know what's going on in the next one. You're more of like a TV series, I guess. You need to binge you on Netflix, and Bald is like a feature film where you could go from beginning to end, not having any idea who this guy is, and then watch the whole thing and kind of not be lost.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's a different style, high risk, high reward. So just like a feature film, most likely it's going to cost a lot more money to produce. Mm-hmm. And if it flops, it flops, right? But when you put together a low to mid budget, Netflix series or something, people are going to watch it, just like as long as it's entertaining enough, it's something to watch. People will watch it.
Good background TV. I would love to be background TV. Well, thankfully he's gotten to a point where he can afford to have a flop or two, although I don't really think he has. Even a video that maybe gets 1 million views, he might consider a flop these days. Why don't we talk about his financial situation? Because where he started out, I actually looked up the rules for bankruptcy in the UK. I sent them to you, Johnny, and it looks like it's a little bit easier to do in the UK than the US. I know back in the day, like basically anyone could file bankruptcy in the US, and now it's not quite the case, or there's a lot more restrictions on what you can actually write off as far as debt is. But the UK, besides like student loans, like actual real estate, it looks like anything that's unsecured can pretty much go away. And Bald said he did it for like £300. And the only thing that's really changed is the price has gone up. It's now £680 to file bankruptcy in the UK.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I know in the US, we have a bunch of different types, but the individual one that you would use would be the Chapter 13. And that's actually not that expensive either. I think it's like about the same price. It's about $700.
So it's interesting that I think maybe the bankruptcy really helped him when his YouTube money started taking off, because I remember you telling me this when we were in Ukraine. So that was, I actually just got the reminder. It was 3 years ago. Today I was in Ukraine. So 2021. And you had told me, I don't know that he wanted it to be known, but you had kind of set it on the side. You're like, he has a very large sum of money just sitting in a bank account. And I was like, wait, like a checking account, like not even making, a paltry 0.5% interest. And you're like, yeah, nothing. Yeah, I thought that was wild.
Yeah. So just a little context. We were there with Invest Like a Boss crew, and we were talking about finances. And I've actually been Bold's kind of unofficial financial advisor for the last couple of years, just as a friend. And he knows I'm into investing. I have the podcast. So he's always asked me advice. He's not necessarily taken the advice,
as we found out.
He's kept it in mind. And it turns out he was reading the books I recommended, and he's just kind of a slow mover, right? He has been bankrupt before, and he never wants to get there again. So he really just wanted to see the $1 million in his checkings account, just to be able to see it, just to know it was real. I told him it was a terrible idea, that it was not going to be insured over, let's say £250,000. So the bank failed, he'd be screwed. Or if he got locked out, he'd be screwed. Or if inflation was high, he'd be screwed. I did warn him of everything, but
it's like, you can still see your balance in a brokerage account,
Yeah. But I do understand, mentally for him, it was important to see that number. And I was proud that he came to me, shortly after that, when we had that Soviet champagne in, I think it was in Lithuania. And he said, okay, I'm ready. Like, show me your, can you, if you don't mind, show me your investment account. And I opened my Vanguard, and he was like, wow, like, this is real. And he saw the growth, and I showed him the downs as well. I was like, listen, like, there's a couple months I'm losing 30-40 grand a month, in the red. He's like, yeah, but it, eventually goes back up. I'm like, well, if you can keep that, if you can keep your stomach, this is what I advise.
So he partially took that. He said he has about 25% of his net worth in the S&P 500, which is obviously a good chunk of money, because we know at least his baseline is $1 million, and I would assume it's higher since then. But
yeah, and I think he's talking about £1 million as well, which is quite a bit more than dollars.
A little bit more, yeah. But 45% crypto, I think I have some issues with that as well.
Insane. Well, to be fair, I mean, Bald's been arrested or detained in multiple countries. He doesn't really trust government systems. He's not a bad guy, right? But he likes to skate on the edge of the law and what government wants you to do.
I did get his point that he was like, you know what, maybe this is less obtainable from a government entity, which I guess arguably it is, but we've seen plenty of instances of the US government taking people's crypto too. So I guess if he has it locked away in what's it called, a hard wallet, I assume that's kind of how it sounded like he had it, then maybe he's a lot safer that way. But that's a huge chunk. And then again, you're right, though. He has a very risky profession.
Yeah. I mean, and also just personality. Like, I mean, I'm going to put this out there. He's not doing anything immoral or illegal, despite the rumors out there. But he is breaking the law and sneaking into government places that are this abandoned space shuttle, as an example. He does like making these adventure tourism videos. He is very outspoken, about governments and things like that. So for him, he has this risk of getting locked out of his bank somewhere, right? And I don't think I know for sure he didn't put 45% of his net worth into crypto. He just got very lucky that it grew over the last couple of years.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So he probably put in something like a quarter of it or something. And I did warn him. I said, listen, this might go up and this might go to zero. If you're willing to take that risk, I wouldn't put more than 10%. And if you want to be prudent, and I think he said, how about I put 25? I'm comfortable with that. And I was like, all right, well, if you understand the risks, and this is something you want to do, go for it. And that number went up.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's your money, You're not going to tell anybody what to do with it. And I did find it interesting that he bought an apartment in Prague. I love Prague. Prague was a great city, but he doesn't seem like the type that would be buying real estate to stay there, because I don't think he's staying there more than a few days. But I could be wrong, but it's just the personality that he puts out there is that he's always on the move.
And honestly, I don't think he actually likes that apartment very much. I think he just wanted to have a home base somewhere, and he was spending a lot of time there before, so then he decided, okay, I'll just buy one here. It seems like an okay deal. But yeah, I don't think that's his definitely not his dream place to be or anything. He's just like, all right, I have the money, let me just buy something.
Yeah, it seemed like a really surprising move. And the last thing I really want to touch on that I think he might have introduced a new investment opportunity to us without, maybe even knowing it. Maybe you've got some offers for this, Johnny, but I didn't think about buying royalties from YouTube channels. I mean, obviously we do it with TV shows, music, songs, films, things of that matter, but it never even crossed my mind that companies could actually go out and buy the royalties from a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I think I need to explore this more.
I don't actually know how that works on the back end. I guess it should be pretty easy where you just do a copyright claim, and then if the person accepts, then now it's theirs and they get paid for everything.
And yeah, it was dated out through a contract, and on this date you get it back, I guess.
Yeah.
Very interesting. It's not, he made it sound like it was a nice chunk of change that he got from those. So I think we need to investigate this more and maybe find a company that does it and feature them on the show. I think that'd be a really interesting future episode.
I'm so curious if they actually made their investment back, because I know for sure my back catalog does not make diddly jack. Like, I will get $10 a month for my best videos from the past. The amount that they gave him, which was a very big, significant amount, we both calculated. We're like, there's no freaking way they're going to make this back in 5 years. There must be something else to it.
But he made a point that they keep going back to him. So why would you keep investing in a losing investment, I guess?
Yeah. So they must be somehow making money from it. I don't know if they're somehow adding more ads to them. I don't know if they even have control of that. I have no idea. I think he doesn't know either, to be honest. And he was just like, you know what? I sold it. I got the money. Like, they're old videos. Who cares?
Like, think of it this way. If you watch like Indiana Jones, you watch an Indiana Jones movie, you associate that with Harrison Ford. You don't associate it with the person that's actually getting paid for you to watch that movie. At the end of the day, he's still in the video. It's still on his channel. Nothing's really changed from the consumer standpoint.
Yeah. And I do know that the one kind of rule that they said, listen, we'll buy this out, but you can't stop making videos. Like, you're under contract.
Oh, you can't just like say I retire type thing. Okay.
Yeah. And, for those 5 years, you have a limit. You have to make at least one video every 2 months or something like that. It wasn't like a high number, but it was just, and they also didn't have
gotta keep the channel active.
Yeah. Okay. And there was no like rules like the videos must be good. I mean, he literally could have been like, all right, guys, here's my every 2 month walk around in the park. Like, I'm retired now.
I mean, if you go strictly off the contract, I guess you could do something like that.
Yeah, so there was very, very little risk to him. So it was a great deal. But yeah, no one's ever offered me this deal. If someone's listening and you want to buy my back catalog, I'll sell it for pennies on the dollar. I'm happy to sell it.
Me too. So I think it's really interesting that he also brought up kind of his mortality on YouTube, because I hear a lot of these bigger YouTube names, the reason that they're diversifying into other things or starting an offshoot business or investing their money wisely is because there's some kind of stat. I think the average like top 10% YouTuber, they get like a 7-year run, or 4 to 7 years is what they say. And then it's just like almost everyone just kind of drops off, disappears, something happens, life changes, whatever it may be. But I think he's well aware of that in his head, that maybe the peak is over.
Oh, I mean, he knows the peak is over. I mean, first off, like, he's been to all the places that he wanted to go. Second, before Russia invaded Ukraine, it was cool to, explore this old Soviet stuff. It's kind of like, I would put it as, right now, it's cool to make videos and movies and TV shows about like biker gangs, right? Like, what's the one that's really famous on TV? Like
Sons of Anarchy was big, and then the Mayans.
Yeah, and that's based off, what's that really famous, Hell's Angels, right?
Hell's Angels, yeah.
So right now it's very cool and it's trendy to make videos about them, and it's okay. Like, if you want to worship them a bit and wear their swag and be like, yeah, I'm team Hell's Angels, and I'm team Sons of Anarchy, it's cool. But imagine if the Sons of Anarchy guys or the Hell's Angels decided to actually become violent criminals, like, for real, and start invading, killing people, kidnapping children, like, destroying homes, and just being an actual not just a menace, but like a supervillain. Those shows would no longer be popular. People were like, man, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So the whole Soviet, subculture, it was cool before 2022. And now, it's like, Like a lot of people have stopped watching.
I guess I'm not familiar enough with his channel to know. Like, I know he was very into the Soviet thing, but did he try other locations? And maybe he's just like, this isn't my thing. I know he talked about India at first, and he was in Ukraine, obviously, when I met him. But is his channel so associated with Soviets that he couldn't move to a new area?
Yes.
Or would he even be interested in that?
So the reason why most people watched his channel, and the reason why I started watching it, was because he gave us an insight into these places that we would normally not be able to travel to or be able to communicate in. Because he speaks Russian pretty well, he's adventurous, he's brave. He'll go into these, places that were seen as dangerous or hard to get to, and he'll just interact with locals. He'll do crazy stuff, like get drunk with people. Again, not a role model thing to go meet a stranger and get drunk with, get in their car and get drunk with them, right? Like, this is something you'd recommend to your children to do. But he was a fun guy, when I was with him in Lithuania, we went to this ex-Russian gangster's house, and he had the old Soviet flag still. We got drunk, and this is, this is before Russia invaded, and it was cool. But now I wouldn't do that,
Yeah.
So things have changed 100%. So yeah, he's been to other countries now, as you can see in his recent videos, but people really know him for, for the old Soviet stuff.
Totally. He might have typecast himself into a corner here. It'd be interesting to see if he can paint his way out, but if not, I think financially he's going to be just fine.
Oh yeah. I think once he hit his goal, I think he's like, okay, everything else is kind of just bonus money now. But I will give you a little insight where when I met him, he was actually considering stopping YouTube. He was kind of burnt out. He didn't enjoy going on these solo adventures anymore. And I'm actually the one who convinced him to make another video. I mean, he probably would have done it on his own anyways, or maybe he would have found someone else to give him the push. But I do specifically remember hanging out and asking like, hey, when's your next video going to come out? And he's like, I'm thinking about stopping. And I was like, well, if you don't mind, like, can you just come tag along with me, and be in my video? And he's like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, he said he needed a foil, and you were his new foil. I think maybe the inspiration to get back into it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely not inspiration, but more just like it's more fun to make videos together, like to travel together instead of being alone.
Yeah, I can attest that making videos by yourself can suck sometimes, because that's what I do, and it's not the greatest.
And like even traveling to these like far away places, like before the videos he made with me, he was always solo, almost always. Like, once in a while he'd have someone, but like he was usually just solo. But I would say ever since then, there's almost always been someone in his videos, whether it's Backpacker Ben or one of these other guys.
Yeah, and then add all the editing time on top of it. Like, I totally understand. Like, the audience sees 30 minutes of content, but it was probably 30 hours or 300 hours to put all that together.
Yeah, exactly. Especially, when he's going to these faraway places, and like there's only so many dinners you want to have by yourself in a shitty, hotel room somewhere.
Buying it off an old grandma off the train platform.
But I know I said this in the intro, but I'm always going to be forever grateful of Bald for helping me get over this big hump. Actually, I was actually pretty close to 100,000. I think I had like 40,000. I guess that's not close, but I had a decent channel before I met him, mostly from Sri Lanka. But it was collaborating with him that brought me, all the views. I would say that brought me to like 150,000 views. And then the next big jump was when the war started in Ukraine. That gave me the really big jump to about 250,000. Since then, I've been pretty stagnant, but I'm actually pretty happy here. I'm not aiming for that next plaque, even though it would be nice.
Yeah, it's basically like you got to hop on a hit song with like Kendrick Lamar or something. It can totally give you like a huge jump start into that next level. But then it's on you to kind of keep that going, and you've done very well with that.
Yeah, and but to be honest, there's it wasn't just one song, it was multiple videos. He was probably in at least 6 or 7 of my videos, and I was in 2, 3, 4 of his videos. So each one of those gave me a huge following. But the problem is a lot of those people followed me only to see Bald. So they would only watch the videos that he was in.
Okay.
And I would say there's probably a third of my subscribers now that will watch the videos that he's in but they won't watch anything else, which messes up my algorithm.
You'll have to drop a little snapshot 2-second clip of him in every video.
Oh, but I mean, and then now that there's like the war happening, some of my hardcore viewers, the ones that are super, super pro Ukraine, but not not thinking, I don't want to say rationally, but like the ones that just really, really hate Russia, they hated everyone that has ever liked Russia. And I'm like, guys, like Bald's been arrested in Russia, like he's not allowed there, which obviously means the Kremlin thinks that he's pro Ukraine, and Bald has come out saying he's against the war. So yeah, I think a lot of people wish he was doing more, or that he's never loved Russia in the first place, but you can't change that, right?
Yeah, and that's an argument that you're never going to convince anybody one way or the other if they think a certain way. And we could talk for hours on that. We'll save that for another show. But super cool opportunity to hear from him, Johnny. Thanks for getting this all set up. And thanks for Bald for coming on the show, because I know I learned a lot more about the financial side of not just him, but a channel his size and like what the potential is there. So if there's anyone else out there like myself who just got monetized on YouTube, but I don't treat it as a career. It's just something I would do for fun and would do for free. And I basically did do for free for the last 18 months anyways. But now seeing a couple dollars coming in every month, I'm like, this could be something if I really, really worked at it. So to hear him make millions off it is pretty wild.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was a lot from there. I mean, one thing that actually those YouTube breakdowns never talk about is how much you get from sponsors. So I will put this out there. Sponsorships come very few and in between. I think Bald's only done a handful total. Maybe like I think I've only seen him, with 2 or 3 sponsors on the channel ever. But each one needs to pay a very significant amount of money, like
a lot more than the YouTube would pay. Yeah.
Yeah, like he has to be able to go out and buy a Corolla, like maybe in a GR Corolla. So like to be able to get him sponsoring that, and it's worth it, because I think especially if someone doesn't do a lot of sponsorships, like when they do one, people listen because they're not sick of the same person reading the same ad every week. They're like, oh, if this guy is putting his name on something, maybe it's something that's actually good,
Yeah, it's like when you hear a podcast and they're running 5 ads in a row. It's just like, I don't know what just happened. It's okay, But if you hear it from someone that you don't normally hear an ad from, then you're gonna pay attention.
Yeah. So if he was able to get more sponsored ads, or if he was willing to take on more, he would actually make way more money. He would, I mean, just on my videos, I'll tell you, on a decent video, I can get $300 an ad revenue, but I would never do a sponsorship for $300. Like it would be, let's say, starting double that as like the least I've ever taken, but normally it's over $1,000. So if you can get people don't realize that you double dip. If I have a sponsor on my video, I still get the ad revenue. So instead of making just 300, I can now make 1,300 or whatever it is.
So there's all kinds of potential. Obviously, I think the number one job that every high schooler wants to be now is to be a YouTuber. So there's lots of competition out there. He's still holding out and definitely one of the top channels out there. So really cool to hear from him.
Yeah, so definitely share this podcast with anyone who's interested in YouTube, or especially the financials behind it. But for all the high school kids out there listening, it's not easy. You'll get a lot of haters. You'll get a lot of people with negative comments, making up rumors and lies about you. Just like if you're a celebrity or a sports star. So mentally, it's a challenge, especially not getting paid for the first year or two, as Derek knows with Petro Electric. It's a hard industry to break into, but it is creatively rewarding if something you enjoy doing, and financially rewarding, as we've seen.
Yeah, and I just talk about cars on my channel, and Johnny, you should see some of the horrible things that people say, especially on Instagram. Instagram is especially horrible. So if I'm just talking about cars, imagine the type of stuff that Bald gets is just got to be out of this world.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like it's mentally damaging to read comments on YouTube. It's crazy, So, it comes with the territory. I wish it didn't. I wish we were smart enough just to hire like interns just to comb through all of them. But I think we also enjoy reading the good comments. So it comes with the territory.
Yeah, I like both, and even some of the terrible ones, I'm like, some of them are still kind of witty and make me laugh a little bit. So I'm like, well, you were trying to insult me, but you actually made me laugh. So thanks for that.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Well, thankfully, there's no comments on on podcast, but if you have any, you can
there
send us a
are.
message
Comment
on Patreon.
away. If
there?
you're listening on Spotify, you can comment on this podcast. It actually
Really?
just started this week, Johnny. So it's a new feature. I'm glad you brought that up. We didn't even rehearse that beforehand, I swear.
Well, give that a shot so we can check it out.
But keep it positive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. Good talking to you, Derek, and good luck. If you want to check out Bald's channel, it's Bald and Bankrupt on YouTube. Mine's Johnny FD, and Derek's is Petrol Electric.
All right. We'll talk to you bosses next week.
Peace out.
Thanks for listening to the Invest Like a Boss podcast. Join our mailing list at investlikeaboss.com to get exclusive access to our insider investment portfolios and our private members forum.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. Tell your friends and leave us a review in the iTunes store. It helps more than you know. See you guys next week.